Sure.
All right. So, first chapter for today is For Mac. Mac groans. He stumbles to his feet and hobbles off toward his office. Ruby watches him go by. Julia is questioning. Is she afraid? Relieved? Proud? When Mac is gone, George and Julia lead Ruby from the ring. It's okay, baby. It's okay, Julia says, stroking Ruby's head. They settle Ruby in her domain and make sure she has fresh water and food. Before long, Ruby is dozing. Dad, Julia asks, as George locks Ruby's iron door, do you think Mac would ever hurt Ruby? I don't think so, Jules, George says. At least, I hope not. Maybe we could call someone. George scratches his chin. I wish I could help Ruby, but I don't know how. I mean, who would I call? The elephant cops? Besides, George looks down. I need this job, Jules. We need this job. Your mom, the doctor bills. He kisses the top of Julia's head. Back to work, you and me both. Julia sighs, and she reaches for her backpack. She removes a piece of paper, a bottle of water, and a small metal box. Homework first, George says, wagging his finger. Then you can paint. It's for art class, Julia explains. We're doing watercolors. I'm going to paint Ruby. George smiles. All right then, just don't forget your spelling. Dad, Julia asks again, do you see Mac's face when he hit Ruby? George nods. Yes, he said solemnly. I did. He shakes his head. Poor Mac. He turns away, and only then do I hear him laughing. Colors. Julia opens the metal box. I see a row of little squares. Green, blue, red, black, yellow, purple, orange. The colors seem to glow. She pulls out a brush with a thin tuft of tail at its end. She dips the brush into the water and wets the paper, then taps the red square. When the brush meets the damp paper, pink petals of color unfurl like morning flowers. I can't take my eyes off that magic brush. For a moment, I think I'm not thinking about Ruby and Mac and the claw stick and Stella. Almost. Julia touches red again, then blue, and there, suddenly, it's the purple of a ripe grape. She touches blue, and her paper turns to summer sky, and black and white, and now I see that she is painting a picture of Ruby. I can make out her floppy ears, her thick legs. Julia stops painting. She takes a few steps back, hands on hands on her hips, gazing at her work. She scowls. It's not right, she says. She glances over her shoulders at me. I try to look encouraging. Julia starts to crumple up the paper, then reconsiders. Instead, Julia slides it into my cage at the spot where my glass is broken. Here you go, she says. A Julia original. That'll be worth millions someday. Gingerly, I pick up the paper. I do not eat a single bite of it. Oh, hey, I almost forgot. Julia turns to her backpack. She pulls out 3 plastic jars, one yellow, one blue, one red. She opens the jars, and odd, an odd, not food smell hits my nose. Julia pushes the jars one by one through the opening. Then she slides some paper through. These are called finger paints, she says. My aunt gave them to me, but really, I'm too old for finger painting. I stick my finger into the red jar. The paint is thick as mud. It's cool and smooth like the bananas underfoot. I plop my finger into my mouth. It's not exactly ripe mango, but it's not bad. So what did he just do with the paint? Josh? What?
Put it in his mouth.
Yeah, he put it in his mouth. He ate it. Julia laughs. Don't eat it, you paint with it. She grabs a piece of paper and presses her finger on it. See, like this. I place my finger on a piece of paper. I lift it, and a red mark is there. I get a bigger glob from the plot from the pot and slip my hand down on the page. When I pull my hand off the paper, its red twin stays behind. This isn't like ghostly fingerprint hand paints on my glass, the ones my visitors leave behind. This handprint can't be wiped away so easily. A bad dream. I lie awake peeling dried red paint off my fingertips. Bob, who accidentally walked on one of my paintings, is licking his red paws. Every so often, I glance over at the empty ring. The claw stick glints in the moonlight. Stop. No. Ruby's frantic cries startle me. Ruby, I call. You're having a bad dream. You're okay. You're safe. Where's Stella? She asks, gulping for air. Before I can answer, she says, never mind. I remember now. Go back to sleep, Ruby, I say. You've had a hard day. I can't go back to sleep, she says. I'm afraid I'll have the same dream. There was a sharp stick, and it hurt. I look at Bob, and he looks back at me. Oh, Ruby says. Oh, Mac. She puts her trunk between the bars. Do you think she hesitates? Do you think Mac is mad because I hit him today? I consider lying, but gorillas are terrible liars. Probably, I say finally. He ran away after that, Ruby says. Bob gives a scornful laugh. Crawled away is more like it. We are quiet for a while. Branch is clawed at the roof. A light rain drums. One of the parrots murmurs something in her sleep. Ruby breaks the silence. Ivan, I smell something funny. He can't help it, Bob says. I believe she's referring to the fingerprints Julia gave me, I say. What are fingerprints? Ruby asks. You make pictures with them, I explain. Can you make a picture of me? Maybe someday. I remember Julia's picture, the one that will be worth millions. I hold it up to the glass. Look, it's you. Julia made it. It's hard to see, Ruby says. There's not much moonlight. Why do I have two trunks? I examine the picture. Those are feet. Why do I have 2 feet? It's called artistic license, Bob says. Ruby sighs. Could you tell me another story? She asks. I don't think I can ever go back to sleep. I told you all I remember, I say, with a helpless shrug. Then, tell me a new story, she says. Make something up. I try to think, but my thoughts are turning to Mac and his claw stick. Anything yet? Ruby asks. I'm working on it. Ivan, Ruby presses. Bob said you are going to save me. I I search for words. I'm working on that too. Ivan, Ruby's voice says so low I can barely hear her. I have another question. I can tell from the sound of her voice that this will be a question I don't want to answer. Ruby taps her trunk against the rusty iron bars of her door. Do you think, she asks, that I'll die in this domain someday, like Aunt Stella? Once again, I consider lying, but when I look at Ruby, the half formed words die in my throat. Not if I can help it, I say instead. I feel something tight in my chest, something dark and hot, and it's not my domain, I add. And it's not a domain, I add. Then I pause and say, it's a cage. The story. I look at the ring, layered with fresh sawdust. I look at the sky, a half hidden moon. I just thought of a story, I say. It's a made up story. Is it a made up story or a true one? Ruby asks. True, I say. I hope. Ruby leans against the bars. Her eyes hold the pale moon in them, the way a still pond holds stars. Once upon a time, I say, there was a baby elephant. She was smart and brave. She needed to go to a place called a zoo. What's a zoo? Ruby asks. A zoo, Ruby, is a place where humans make amends. A good zoo is a place where humans care for animals and keep them safe. Did the baby elephant get to the zoo? Ruby asked softly. I don't answer right away. Yes, I say at last. How did she get there? Ruby asks. She had a friend, I say. A friend who made a promise. Bo. It takes a long time, but finally Ruby returns to sleep. Ivan, whispers Bob, yawning. What you said about the zoo? How are you going to do it? Suddenly, I feel as if I could sleep for 1,000 days. I don't know, I admit. You'll think of something, Bob says confidently, his voice trailing off as his eyes closed. What if I don't? I ask Bob. But Bob is already asleep. His little red feet dance, and I know he's running in his dreams. Remembering. Bob and Ruby sleep on. I don't sleep. I think about the promise I made to Stella, the pictures I've made for Ruby, and I remember. I remember it all. What they did. We were clinging to our mother, my sister and I, when the humans killed her. They shot my father next. They chopped off their hands and their feet and their heads. Something else to buy. There is a cluttered, musty store near my cage. They sell an ashtray there. It is made from the hand of a gorilla. Another Ivan. When morning comes, the parking lot glimmers with dew. I see the billboard on the highway. There I am, the one and only Ivan, bathed in the pink light of dawn. I look so angry with my furrowed brow and my clenched fists. I look the way my father did the day the men came. I am, s- I am, I suppose, a peaceful sort. Mostly I watch the world go by and think about naps and bananas and yogurt raisins. But inside me, hidden, is another Ivan. He could tear a man's limbs off his body. In the flicker of time it takes a snake's tongue to taste the air. He could taste revenge. He is the Ivan on the billboard. I stare at the one and only Ivan, at the faded picture of Stella, and I remember George and Mac on their ladders, adding the picture of Ruby to bring new visitors to the Exit 8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade. I remember the story Ruby told, the one where the villagers came to her rescue. I hear Stella's kind, wise voice. Humans can surprise you sometimes. I look at my fingers coated in red paint, the color of blood, and I know how to keep my promise. Days. During the days I wait, during the nights I paint. I worry when Mac takes Ruby into the ring. He carries the claw stick with him all the time now. He doesn't use it. He doesn't have to. Ruby isn't fighting back anymore. She does whatever Mac asks. What's up, Jess?
How many chapters are we going to be reading?
I'll probably read one or two more.
Okay.
Yeah. Nights. I close my eyes. I dip my fingers into the paint. When I am done with one piece of paper, I set it aside to dry. It's so small, just one sheet, and I am going to need so many. I move on to the next and the next and the next. It's a giant puzzle. I'm making the pieces one by one. By morning, my floor is covered with paintings. I hide the paintings under my pool of dirty water before Matt can see them. I don't want them to end up in the gift store selling for $25 or $20 a piece. 25 with a frame. These paintings are for Ruby, every one of them. The next chapter is Project, which we will save for tomorrow. So